4345, we're stopping on the runway. We just hit somebody, we have an engine fire.
I heard like a loud boom. People started screaming and stuff. There was a lot of toxic smoke right after the incident happened.
One person is dead tonight after investigators say they jumped a fence at Denver International Airport, ran onto a runway, and directly into the path of a Frontier Airlines plane with hundreds of people on board. Thanks for joining us tonight at 5. I'm Jennifer Meckles. That Frontier flight was in the process of takeoff, headed to LA, just after 11 o'clock last night when it hit and killed the pedestrian who has not been identified. DIA says that person did not work for the airport. The plane engine briefly caught fire. Frontier says there was smoke in the cabin. Pilots aborted takeoff and evacuated all 224 passengers plus 7 crew members from that plane. 12 people on the plane reported minor injuries. 5 went to the hospital. 4 have been released tonight. Several federal agencies, the FAA and TSB, are now investigating along with Denver police, and the runway was back open again by midday today. DIA says only 2 minutes passed from the time that person hopped the fence to when they got hit by the plane, crossing the runway on the far east side of the airport property, which is where we find tonight 9 News reporter Ria Jha with more on this fence setup, Ria, and the investigation into what happened overnight.
Yeah, Jenny, we are as close to the runway as we can before it turns into the private property, but I just want to show you the area that we are in right now. It is fields and dirt roads for miles and miles. As far as you can see, you don't just happen upon this place.
Scholar, Frontier 4345, we're stopping on the runway. We just hit somebody, we have an engine fire.
In just minutes, a routine takeoff at DIA turned into an emergency response on runway 17L.
There was an individual walking across the runway.
Airport officials said the person jumped this fence around 11:19 Friday night and was hit 2 minutes later while crossing the runway.
2 minutes is faster than most humans can run, so it had to be close proximity.
Dave Riley is a former FAA air traffic controller. He wasn't involved in this case or investigation, but he worked at DIA for 15 years and knows the layout well.
Some people were speculating that they came from the terminal towards that runway, and in 2 minutes, as reported, that wouldn't happen.
This fence is only a few hundred feet away from the runway. Riley says once that person was on the runway, there was no time left to stop what happened next.
This Frontier aircraft was traveling at approximately 112 knots, which is approximately 150 miles an hour. Everything passes by at that speed very, very fast, and so they get a brief glimpse, and I think that's how they identified it to the tower controller, saying that they struck a person.
They're about halfway down the runway of 17 left. They're evacuating the runway, the aircraft on the runway.
The area near runway 17 left is isolated. Miles of dirt roads, open fields, and restricted airport land.
There's a whole bunch of nothing out there. There are some dirt roads out that way, so who knows where this individual originated from and what made them decide to climb an extremely high fence with barbed wire at the top.
As for security, Riley says most airports are similar to this.
But DIA is the largest landmass airport in the country. It's 53 square miles. So just putting up a fence around that airport is a feat in itself. I think the city is always looking at ways to improve perimeter security, and I'm sure this incident will further highlight the necessity for that.
There is confirmed security footage of this incident that we are working to obtain, but investigators will be reviewing that heavily as they try to figure out what exactly happened here last night. Reporting live at DIA, Ria Jha, 9 News.
All right, Ria, thank you. And as investigators work to piece this all together, we're also hearing from the people who were on that plane. 9 News reporter Colton Chavez joins us now with their stories. Colton?
Yeah, Jenny, our crew spoke to people who were on that plane overnight. Many of them went on to LA, but some, whether they need medical attention or were just rattled to travel again, they stayed here in Denver. But a lot of them say it's a night they'll never forget.
It was chaos everywhere.
That's how passengers described the scene aboard Frontier Flight 4345, just seconds into its takeoff from Denver International late Friday night.
There was suddenly like this jerk on the plane. There was fire on the engine. There was like, lots of sparks that were happening. Immediately came to a stop, As soon as we saw the sparks on the flight, smoke filled the cabin completely. It was super hard to breathe.
Frontier Airlines says after the crash, the pilots aborted takeoff, but for several minutes, passengers were told to stay in their seats.
We couldn't get out. We were telling them, let us out, let us out, let us out. They were trying to calm us down. Calm down, because people were panicking really bad. In a few minutes, they finally opened the door so that we could jump.
Frontier says all 224 passengers and 7 crew eventually evacuated down the emergency slides as Denver firefighters worked to put out what Denver International Airport confirmed was a brief engine fire.
It was a horrific moment, like a terrifying moment in my life.
Many passengers had no idea that the plane hit a person on the runway until after they got off the plane themselves.
Someone has to be held accountable. And that's all I'll say.
The FAA, NTSB, and Denver police are investigating. The airport says 12 passengers were reported with minor injuries and 5 were taken to the hospital.
We're alive. Nothing happened to us, other than a minor inconvenience. We're alive, and that's the good thing, right?
And tonight we are continuing to ask many of those unanswered questions in this story, like how someone got over that fence undetected. Now, Denver International Airport tells us it's responsible for perimeter security, but under FAA and TSA regulations. Jenny?
All right, and Colton Chavez will be continuing to cover this story throughout the evening. Colton, thank you.